All right. Live on YouTube. Back after a small hiatus. Season 5, Episode 1.
Downton Abbey you're talking about? Or
Season 5,
I think.
So, where are we with 0.7?
All right. What to do today? Where are we? Who are we? Etc.
Yeah, I think the first thing would be to talk about 0.7, right? So
Or the lack of it, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm getting deja vu. It almost feels like we've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
Another release, another epic delay. You know what we need? Some serious developer time on this project.
So where are we with Unidown?
Unidown is so frustratingly close. Like,
Stephen, look at issue 1625. I've got a question about RESI data. I was playing around with Unidown before the holidays.
Yeah.
I don't understand RESI data as well as some, so that would hit.
So let Steve actually answer. But my guess on this is that the download is wrong. It needs fixing.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Well, it should be downloading 3 files, and it's only getting 1.
Yeah, that's right. It should be getting 4 or 3.
Okay. Alright, so there's a bug.
I'm sure there are bugs. The main thing that's missing is documentation. I have had...
Well, so I couldn't write any documentation because I didn't understand what it was doing. So I tried downloading some RESI data and it broke, or at least unexpected behavior. 1 file or 3 files. So
Yeah.
I can go forward now.
So I have got the... I can't remember what his actual name is. I only know him by his IRC tag. It's not the way to describe him. I have had to someone who's hanging around in the IRC channel who I think is interested in GSOC. I had him work on Unidown. He played around with it a bit, tried to fix up some tests, and also has done done the starts of some documentation, which is PR 1623, which frankly I might just merge. The wonders of the Unidown branch is that you can just do whatever the hell you want.
Can I just ask a question about the formatting or the syntax?
In what now?
1625, 1625, where Jack asked if you should get 3 files. Do we not normally have like an open limit to the end of our intervals? So you've got 3 days or 2 days, like you've got the 4th and the 5th, and then the 6th is like the end of it, but doesn't include the 6th. Or for in this case, do we actually include the day?
Oh yeah, that's true. It shouldn't download the files for the 6th because the timeless date stamp is midnight.
Right. So you should just get 2 files.
You should just get 2 files, yeah.
Right.
That is a good point.
Yeah, we should.
Well, everything follows that as well, actually.
We should probably document that.
Yes,
Probably.
absolutely.
Well, we should also probably make sure that everything actually follows it as well.
Yes.
Because I wouldn't be surprised if quite a lot of the light curve sources that only deal in day length data don't follow that rule.
Yeah.
Or there is no room. rule. Some do and some don't.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
our convention, because it's right. Or at least we should pick one to be a convention and follow that.
Correct.
Well, pastime works on timeless date stamps is midnight, I think.
You know, the other thing we could do is force more accurate times. I mean, it kind of just pushes the problem down, but I always thought it was a little strange. Like there is some significant ambiguity with just saying a date and not adding a time to it.
But if
Well, that's the reason.
Like midnight. It's just
That's
zero.
kind of a
zero
assumed
hour,
midnight
zero
thing. We're just talking over one another. I have no idea what just happened.
hour. Go ahead, Stuart.
Go on.
Oh, I was just saying, isn't the convention normally if you have a date with no time, then that date actually means the very, very beginning, like the first, like the 0th second of that day. Isn't that the convention?
Yeah, that's how I work in Sight. In fact, that's what's happening. Look, if you look at the unified response object that comes back.
Yeah, the problem is to my mind, it's not very Pythonic, right? There should be only one way to do this, and you have to kind of know what the convention is. If you just force the user to say just type out the time.
At the same time, that's a lot of faff. That's space or T, so that's one, and then another. It's like an extra 9 characters every time.
Which include microseconds.
Or also, if you include microseconds, then it's another 15 characters. And then you should also include, if you're doing it full ISO date formatting, you should also include the Z for the time zone, so that's 16. This escalates fast.
Yeah. No, I know. I mean, pushing it down to a smaller interval.
It should, to my mind, it should throw through to pastime, which is what it's doing. I think that assuming midnight is fair. It makes, to my mind, it makes sense. It makes more sense to assume midnight than it does, like 1 second to midnight next day.
Sure. I'm just not a fan of the ambiguity.
Yeah, I see your point, and I do kind of agree. But you're always going to have a little bit.
I just think for the sake of having a convention that we all should always follow, it is a lot of extra characters, and then if you only have it to seconds, that's also fairly arbitrary. You know.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. Well, that's not exactly true.
Once you just have a convention, right? If there isn't a character listed, it's just 0.
0, yeah. Because then, if you don't specify seconds, it should be the first second of the hour.
Yeah, but don't we fail if you just provide the hour but not anything else? Wouldn't parse time fail? It should fail. I feel like.
Yes, but if you don't supply seconds, I think it works. If you don't supply minutes, then it'll break. Probably. I don't know.
Yeah. But that's less ambiguous because you just assume that it will fill out zeros for all the other things, right?
It is slightly less ambiguous, but it's not that much less ambiguous.
It's the same. It's because what's left out of the date and time, you just fill in zeros.
To 0.
And what's left out is the time, so you just fill in zeros. I think it's fine.
Yeah, but so the ambiguity though with the open, whether it's an open interval or closed interval, we need to document that somewhere.
Yeah, that should probably be documented in part-time.
It's closed on the left and open on the right, typically, right?
Well, yeah, because it's 0 on both ends, so yes.
Yeah, but even if you put times in, it would be like if you put like 1 o'clock, it would be everything up to but not including 1 o'clock. Right? That's
unless there's a data point at 1 o'clock, bang on.
Yeah, that happens sometimes in AIA. You'll get like typically you'll get like 1,800 files in a 6-hour period, but sometimes you get 1801 because one just lands right in in the sweet spot.
That is a good point,
And
actually.
all balls.
Because it does, yeah, it includes the 0
Yeah.
rather than excludes the 0.
I think it's fine. Including the 0 is fine, and being having a convention that if you specify just the date, then what you're specifying is
It's midnight.
all balls. Yep. Can we have a no?
Yeah, it should probably be documented, probably in pastime, and then probably also in Fido.
Yep.
No. This is only an issue with time range object, right? A parse time is
No, because pastime does it. Pastime is doing the resolving. If you specify a date pastime, it returns a date time as midnight. Pastime always returns date time.
How we treat intervals, whether they're open or closed.
Yes, that is a
range.
Yeah. Well, this code, of course, doesn't use time range.
Yes,
Because
so it
uses the
should.
time. No, it shouldn't.
Yes, it should.
We've been over this. It's time range is unnecessarily. No, it shouldn't use time range.
We have a time range object.
Yes,
We
but
should be using it.
it won't work. It will break so hard if we use it like that. There are good reasons that it's done like this. Trying to make time range be supported as a Fido attribute would cause so many circular import problems. Because you'd have to import net from time. It would be horrible. You can't do that.
What?
Right, so time is a subclass of simple attribute, right, which is defined inside net. If you want to make time range an attribute so that you can do Fido.search time range,
Yeah.
you would have to import net into time to make time range a subclass of the right class so that the logical operations work.
Yes.
That will break because net will import time and time will import net and it'll explode.
Why does time need to import net?
Because I just explained it. Because it needs to be a subclass of the attribute class.
No, you can just instantiate. So you don't need to make time range a subclass. You just need to make sure that the attribute class uses time range, right?
Why would it do that? What advantage does that give?
Because then it keeps everything consistent. Time and time range
All that time is doing is holding 2 times. That's literally all it does.
Well, so does time range.
No, it doesn't. Time range does all manner of other stuff, including a shitload of input processing.
Well, it parses everything through parse time, and so does time. Okay, we can talk about this some other time.
It's so not necessary.
But you do agree, right, that the time attribute and then time range have very similar uses.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So let's just leave it at that. We can
They are very similar, but they are subtly different.
Yes, I know. I appreciate that.
Basically, as far as I can tell, what needs to happen with Unidown is it needs testing, because as soon as Jack started using it, things broke. And it needs testing, it needs tests, and it needs documentation.
So the code is pretty much done. So it's in a.
I think yes, like feature-wise, the code is done.
Yeah.
It needs some API shuffling. We need to decide how we're going to tell people to use it. In fact, this is a good conversation to have. Please hold while I open a Python interpreter. I created myself a bash alias called SunPy dev that activates my Conda environment for SunPy and does a git pull.
Oh.
It's amazing. It's the best thing ever.
Are you sure? You know, there's 1626 has exactly the same issue. Does Unidown not go and get multiple files?
I don't think it's a unidown problem. I think it's the specific classes, because I think the light curve sources never used to go and get multiple files because of limitations of light curve. And I don't think the sources have been upgraded since they were moved into light.
No, you do get, if you look at 1624, which is a slightly different issue, that the what we display is incorrect, then even though what is displayed as a result is incorrect, the files that you expect, at least from the Lyra client, seem to be fine.
Sorry, what is this? I've lost. I missed an important step here.
1624.
Okay.
So the display is wrong, but the files which you expect.
Display is wrong.
Actually, I don't know if that's given.
Huh?
Here's another thing. So if we're gonna have zero.
Your audio went mad again.
Okay.
And then it stopped. What the hell is Lyra doing? What? What? What?
So here's another point. So if we have midnight, right, as the end when you're specifying a date. If you specify a date only, and then you have midnight gets added on automatically, then in 1624, how many files should I get down in the original piece, in that first piece of code there? Should I get the file at the 7th of March? Because that does include zero. The file name does include zeros, midnight there. So should I get midnight? That one extra.
I do think that actually us including midnight in the range is flawed for this reason. Doesn't make any sense. But I don't know how to fix it.
And the problem is midnight is technically the next day.
Exactly.
Well, so I mean, in those requests in 1624, right?
That would mean adding some very specific and very weird date passing to time, because the only time you'd want it to resolve to not midnight would be if you specify a timeless date as the second argument to time. That would literally be the only time that would happen. Which, I mean, we could do. That would be fine, but it'd be weird. Anyway.
Sorry, I'm still a little bit.
Yeah, I'm lost too.
What's the issue?
The
I'm
issue
trying to figure out what the problem is.
So Lyra files go from are single day files, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And so if I specify just using the date, say the first, second, and third, right? So I go from say 01/01 to 01/03, January 1st to January 3rd.
Yeah.
Then, because Lyra, how many files should Lyra return? 2 or 3?
The way I think about it, it should be 2, because I always thought that we had an interval which was closed on the left and open on the right.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's not actually true. We don't.
Yeah, that was my understanding, and that's so. If we don't, then
because technically midnight is included, which is kind of stupid. but also like that for a reason.
What's the reason?
Because past time just resolves a timeless date to midnight and then includes that time.
Right, but if that's... Okay.
I mean,
It's not something. I don't think it's something we gave too much thought to before. But actually changing that would be a very large behaviour change. Which I mean, you could do. It's be fine. I mean, the thing that would have to catch that is we would need very special input handling on the time attribute, because we wouldn't want the time range object to do that. If you specify midnight to a time range object,
the hour and the minute.
Or you force people to give full time.
Yes, and
You'd
then
have
we're
to specify,
done.
because then you'd have to specify like 23, 59, 59.
Yeah, which is...
If we just define it to be open on the right-hand side of the interval, then if it completes to midnight,
Subtract a second.
It's open, so it's everything up to but not including midnight, so you don't get that file.
Hang on, yeah, that's true. You just always subtract a second from the last one specified.
No, you can't know. That's only for that particular case. Does a second
No, it's
work.
not. If we say that it's always, well, that is of course there we are assuming that a second is our smallest time resolution.
That's right. Exactly.
I mean, well, fine. Subtract a nanosecond. It doesn't matter. Subtract anything, as long as it doesn't resolve to the actual time specified. Pick a resolution and subtract it. It doesn't matter.
But most of the time you're dealing with like 2 dates giving a time range. The result acts as though it's closed on the left and open on the right. You know, so if you use it without
most of the time it acts like that, but that's not actually what it's doing.
Yeah, but you know, but unless you talk in these meetings, if you're just a user, that's what you would assume is happening, because most of the time that's what happens. So why don't we just make it sure that it always behaves like that? So you know, it's intuitive. Surely that's the more logical thing to want from as a user, no?
I agree. It's an implementation. I do agree with the concept. It's an implementation question on how you do it.
Right.
I'd rather we just force people to be clear.
I mean, that is the follow the Zen of Python easy way out.
Yeah.
But I don't see.
Python is a good one.
But just giving hours and minutes, does that actually just like kick the problem down the road? I mean, does it actually fix it, or does it just make it occur less often, this issue? Because we happen to have files that are typically a day or an hour.
If you force them to specify the time, it does fix it, because then whatever they do, it's their own fault.
That's
if they
right.
don't specify 23, 59, 59, then they get midnight, and it's their own damn fault.
No, Dan's right. It's just a question of the resolution you're enforcing, right?
Yeah, you're enforcing a resolution which is specified by the person.
No,
I think
I don't understand.
Always going to have this, unless you have a convention, then you're always going to have this problem.
Well, that's true, actually, yeah, because if you specify 23, 59, 59, is 23, 59, 59 included? Or are we only going up to 1 nanosecond before 23, 59, 59?
If you specify 6 UT.
I would say it's open on the right, so no, it goes up to but not including that. I mean, like
right. The solution is, I think, the following. One, we need to document whether the time range is open or closed, right? On which side, right? We need to do that, period. Then the other thing is, I would say, we need to specify, we need to force them to give us a time, you know, up to the minutes, and then assuming that we fill out zeros with the rest of it, then you remove this ambiguity about midnight. I think the day issue is a problem, right? We can't assume zeros everywhere unless you've specified the time. And I think that won't solve the problem 100%, but it'll solve it 99% of the time. And then we can sort of bury this problem mostly.
Yeah, but why bury it when you can actually fix it?
I don't think you can't fix it unless you force them to tell you exactly the time that they want.
I don't think it's necessary. If you just find it to be open on the right, then it's open on the right. So whatever time you specify on the right, it's up to and including that. I don't think you'd mean...
That's right.
So you don't have to give hours or minutes. If you just have a convention that it fills out the rest with zeros, and it's open on the right, that's actually how it behaves most of the time anyway.
That is currently what it's doing.
So that's intuitive.
It's up to and including is doing right now.
Once you know that, and then if you make a mistake as you're getting used to it, then the patterns that you get in the results that you return tell you that pretty much intuitively. It's open on the right, and fill in the zeros with any time elements that you don't include.
So if we want to, it's true. At the moment, we have an open interval on the right, because if you specify any time to any precision, it includes that time.
Right.
If we wanted to close the interval on the right so that we don't include the second time, the way we would have to do it, from having a quick look at time delta, hang on, let me have a quick look at date time to make sure this is not complete bullshit. Micros, yes, is we would have to subtract 1 microsecond from the date time object.
Hang on, can I just clarify that? Are you saying that at the moment it's open or closed? Open is when it doesn't. So it doesn't include.
No,
the time that's specified.
It does include it. At the moment, it includes it.
And that means it's closed. Closed means
okay.
And it's equal to, like, you include the endpoint that you specify. Open means that it's up to, but not including that endpoint.
Okay.
At the moment,
at the moment, it is currently closed. It includes the endpoint. If we wanted to make it open so it doesn't include the endpoint, we would just subtract 1 microsecond from the time specified on the right-hand side. And then it would always be 1 microsecond back, which means it wouldn't actually include the time passed as the right time. By the way, 1 microsecond is the smallest resolution supported by Python datetime.
that sounds sensible.
That sounds fine to me. Stephen?
Yeah, I guess so. But I still like the idea of forcing them to give the time.
Up to microseconds?
Because it's not, no, not the microseconds.
The only way to fix the problem by making them force them to specify the time is by forcing them to specify it down to the single microsecond level.
No, because...
No, it's not. Even then, it doesn't fix the problem. Even then, it's still an open interval.
I think in this issue, this discussion, whether we force people to add hours and minutes is totally separate from whether the interval's open or closed and the issues we're talking about here. It's actually a separate thing altogether.
It is separate, yeah.
It's a API, issue really. It's how we want people to use it, not how it actually works.
Yeah.
Is Resi data, are the raw files, the counts, the time tagged photons? How do they go down to microseconds?
No, yes, the raw counts do, but what we're downloading here is the summary data files, which are down to they're processed counts to light curves. And I think they go down to 4 seconds.
Yeah, I was just, my question wasn't really about Resi data in particular, but whether solar physics had any data that requires microseconds in order to understand it.
Or more pressingly sub-microsecond. If anything required sub-microsecond, Python datetime is not suitable.
Okay, that answers the question then.
It's of course we need to move away from datetime at some point into AstroPy time.
Oh, that's 0.8, right? Which is going to come in October or something, right?
That skirts around the problem completely. So, anyway, okay, right. So, apart from that, have we made a decision on this? Do we want the interval open or closed?
Open.
Open,
Yeah,
not
open,
including the endpoint, right?
Sorry, I didn't actually hit that. You broke off there, so I didn't hear the question.
So, we should make a decision. Do we want the endpoint open or closed?
I vote open.
Which doesn't include the endpoint, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so we need to modify the time attribute to subtract a microsecond. Can someone open an issue for that?
That sounds like such a kludge. I don't like it.
Well, it is a kludge in some ways, but it's also the only logical way of doing it. How else do you do it? You
So
want up to, but not including the time given to the maximum precision possible.
Well, the way that it's actually going to be implemented for a lot of this is that you you download the files that you need, right? Assuming you
we have not even got that far yet. This is about working out which files need downloading.
No, hang on.
No, you can get more, right? You can always you'll get the whole day, right? Regardless of whether you only want part of that day.
Yeah,
right?
Sometimes, but not always. And also,
if the
what happens if you're talking about
day,
midnight? If it includes midnight, then it's going to download an extra file.
Yes, that's right.
So we're not even with this. The open-closed range thing is pre-file download.
Correct.
Yes, you're right.
So we want right. Okay, so it's subtract microsecond.
Well, I would say just put up an issue and don't suggest the implementation.
Yeah, sure. But, I mean, if someone wants to come up with a better implementation, have fun. I can't think of one. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, put the issue up. We'll deal with it later. Okay, so back to the other... Sorry.
The issue is already up.
The issue is already up, is it?
1624 is the issue, essentially.
Okay.
Oh, sure, but we should have a specific one. Oh no, it is. You've opened one. There we are. 1630.
Oh, well, I did that one. That's just a documentation issue.
Oh, it's both. We could make that both.
Okay. Yeah, this is what daytime does, just fill in zeros for everything that's not specified as well.
Also, we should also think about this for time range. When you instantiate a time range object, do you want it to be open or closed? If open, then you've got to subtract a millisecond on instantiation of time range.
No. No.
Or do
time
we
range
just
should
want
not care. You can
time
maybe
range?
have it. You can maybe have it have a property that tells it whether it's open or closed. But the time range object itself should not change the time that you give it.
But then that's closed.
And then
it's a closed interval.
No. You could say we could maybe add an attribute that says, the left interval is open, the right interval is closed. Just like when you would write an actual interval, right? You would use the square brackets or the whatchamacallit brackets,
You could make it do that.
and then you would,
But then
and
you're
that
still
would be
subtracting
timer.
or adding microseconds.
No,
No,
only when you
you-
are using it. Only when you're using it somewhere will it
Correct.
do the right thing. Right?
Okay.
You're not going to mess with the time when you're creating the timer.
No.
Okay, well that's a second. This is a secondary issue. I'll finish
Sure.
adding this.
That
to
would
it.
be really weird if you were to specify a time and then immediately
You get a different one.
and it, you
Yeah.
get one
That's right.
back. That's not Zen of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that. So for these kinds of issues, the time range is specified, but then when in use, then that's where we document how we treat the endpoints, right?
I would say we can document it in the time range object and the time attribute. Just to say this is how this is meant to be treated, and it should always be consistent with that, right? And then if we wanted to act differently, then we can add an attribute to those objects that say I want this to be treated differently, right? I want my write interval, not because otherwise, if you leave it up to the implementation, then that means that like this search one could be treating it as closed on one end, and then this other search one could be treating it as open at the other end. You know, we want the object to tell the implementation, search, whatever, what it needs to do.
Okay, we should probably move on because I think we've battered this one to death now.
Yeah.
This brings me to the next question that is still outstanding with this, which is how the hell do we actually want people to use this? So, where's Jack's issue gone? Yeah, so at the moment, if I'm not mistaken, didn't think so. Good. At the moment, you have to do this. Which gives you the factory and the attributes from which you can use it.
Yeah.
Do we want to be able to do
I mean, isn't the point that the attributes should be used for all the searches under net?
Yes, so it is. Hence this import. So from SunPy.net import matters, right?
Yeah.
A has these things in it. So instrument time and wavelength are universal over all clients, and then you have client-specific in their own namespace.
Yeah.
So that is just import link, right?
Yeah. So are you asking whether we should provide a shortcut?
So do we want to shortcut FIDO is really the question here. Do we want to be able to do this? From SunPy.net, import FIDO, comma, attributes.
Yeah, I could go either way. I like not providing that because it kind of forces the user to realize that, oh, these are attributes or general.
Well, no, that's got nothing to do with the attributes. The attributes is already in that namespace. The only change here is FIDO, not the attributes.
Oh, I see. Sorry. The other way around.
What's the
Yes.
advantage?
One
Just
import
simpler
rather
to-
than two.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm a fan of that.
Also, it kind of makes FIDO the first-class citizen, right? Because if you want to get to any of the other clients, you have to go deeper.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say let's do that.
Also,
First-class citizen.
from a coding style perspective, this or this. Do we want to shortcut attributes by convention?
What do you mean? Do we normally? Oh, you
No,
want to just call it A as opposed to atch?
A, AD, APR, I don't know. And do we want to? Because I find one thing that bugs me, right, is when doing this. If I say I just want, if I want to do, I want to find a day's worth of AIA data at one wavelength, right? This is long.
Yeah, but the user can set attribute as whatever they want.
I know. But do we want to? I mean, it doesn't make any difference to the actual code. I'm talking. This is a documentation question. Do we want to, by convention, in our documentation, always shortcut it in examples?
I don't know. I mean, I see where you're coming from. I actually really hate attributes.
Yeah, I also hate it as a namespace.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it is.
So shortcutting it as A is even more terrible.
But, I mean, what else do you do with it?
I guess it does have the advantage of like a instrument, a time, a. Yep. That's kind of neat, I guess. A wavelength.
And not the instrument and the time.
Well, no, because you can specify more than one.
Or this. Yeah.
This instrument or that instrument.
Or an
instrument. The wouldn't make any sense because you can specify more than one.
Yeah.
You can do.
Or a time or a time.
I don't know. So, see, when I'm writing code for, like, if I was going to, on the command line, I would do what you're doing. But probably when I was writing the code, I would define everything that I need. And then I'd probably just use attrs. So, I don't really care.
I just think for the documentation, because it's something that people are likely to do from the command line. I know I do it from the command line a lot. In fact, one of my primary uses of SunPy as a user, there aren't many. The one thing that I do occasionally do is go, I wonder what that flare looked like this time, and so much with the typing. And obviously I know I can shortcut it, and I quite often do, but I just think that we should make it as low overhead for users as possible when trying to do this. New users.
But this is going against some of the things that Python, Zen of Python, things should not be vague, right? And so using like a variable name called A, that's something you'd find in IDL of Fortran.
It's true. It's true.
Python.
But I mean, AstroPy do it with U for units, and the same arguments can be made, right? If you have to type units every time,
yeah,
you end up going deep down the rabbit hole of typing units.
Yes. So I would just say that, yeah, there is a balance that needs to be struck between the two. I could go either way. Attributes is not very helpful anyway. Yeah. So. And I do like this idea of like a time. So if you want to use A in the docs, that's fine with me. But we should not make this something we do often, because really it's only like one extra keystroke, right? You type A, then tab. we lost.
Stuart's muted.
Stuart's on the phone.
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't think.
Jack, where are you with what?
This is relatively trivial, I think.
Yeah,
We can change the docs.
whenever.
Yeah.
Where are you, Jack, with the map cube?
Oh, I should make a PR to your. I'll put in some extra stuff,
Okay.
like running differences, base differences, that kind of thing.
Ooh, cool. Yeah, I was also wondering whether we should add a. No, I think we should have had this in there before, but add a warning on import if. So currently we can't derotate, but it would be good to have a warning on import if you're not derotating, that there will be, like, if you have a list of maps that's too long in time, and you know that a pixel will have moved into another pixel space by the end, it would be good to raise a warning on that and to ask the user to run derotate.
Why do you want that?
Because a lot of the things that we're doing, that we're adding here, depend on the pixels, the stuff in the pixels kind of staying the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so as we're adding that, we need to be more careful about what users are doing, and it would be easy to give that little warning on input. Right. Doing the standard deviation of a pixel is only worthwhile if the stuff inside the pixel hasn't moved over to the next pixel by the time you're at the end of your series of maps.
So I think I don't think we should do that. I think that's entirely up to the user. If they don't realize the sun's rotating, they've got other problems.
But the sun, that's not really. I disagree with you, Jack.
Well,
Everybody knows the sun rotates. Well, most people do. But
sorry,
but
about
sometimes it doesn't matter. Right.
So my argument to this is that you're both wrong. Well, no. So the way I would do this is not based on pixel coordinate at all. Is the proper way of doing it, right? Each map should be coordinate aware, and you should be doing these operations based on physical coordinate, not array index.
Yes, but we're not there yet. So this map cube implementation is not going to solve that.
So what are you trying to do with this? What features are you adding to this map cube thing? Because it sounds awesome, or potentially awesome.
Actually, you could see it.
Just before, because I'm sorry, I had to drop out. Did we come to a consensus on the shortcutting in the document?
Yes. The consensus is it doesn't matter. Let's do whatever we want, and we can change it if we want to later.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very rare that we arrive at a consensus that people don't really care. Usually
people care. Not always the same, but they always care.
Sometimes people care too much.
Often.
Yes, exactly.
Often care too much.
Often, yes.
Okay. Let's see. Where's my map cube? So, I mean, let's see. This. Yes. Basically, I was trying to use MapCube.
Internet.
Hello?
Can't hear you, Peach.
Oh, here we go. I was trying to use MapCube, and I was very frustrated because currently MapCube is really provides very little functionality. It's basically like
it's
a list.
very light list, basically.
Yeah, yeah, it's basically a list, and it provides the plotting animation, which is nice. But I should have linked to the actual file.
No, see, that's
Well,
interesting.
Well, with Jack and I, we started talking, and we both started griping about it, and we know that we have this kind of higher level goal of treating everything properly. So here's the actual file. Treating it, as a n-dimensional data cube, blah blah blah, all that stuff, and I think that's what stopped us at first from doing anything. Even from providing a nicer implementation of MapCube, because we were all, ND data we were getting there at some point, and then things kind of stopped. So I recently started using MapCube and for some work that I had to do, and got very frustrated that I had to do so much of the stuff sort of by hand, by messing with the data attributes and stuff. So Jack and I just started spitballing, and essentially what we arrived at is it's still essentially a list of maps, but it gives you the same kind of API that Map provides in the way that you would expect. So for example, if you want to submap, it basically just submaps the list of maps, right? If you want to do superpixel or resample, it just does it for each of the maps and then returns you a new map cube with that having been applied
it's
to
definitely
everything.
something that I wanted for a while. So I notice here that in the docstring at the top of this map cubed, you have said a series of spatially aligned maps of the same size. So where did you actually make use of that assumption?
So the same size, it's being assumed in a lot of different places. So the main place, I would say, is line 132, the data attribute. So we weren't providing a data attribute before because it was a series of a list of maps essentially.
No, so you cubanize it. Okay.
Yeah, I cubanize it essentially, and then it also is being sort of, in some places, it's kind of assumed, like when you do a submap, if it could break if they weren't really the same, looking at the same places, right? Maybe the submap would apply to a fraction of the maps, but not all of them.
Okay.
So some of that stuff wouldn't work very well.
I agree. Right, okay, so I think there are two separate things here. One I kind of like, and the other one I kind of don't, but also see the necessity for. So, first off, the concept of doing things like submap, superpixel, resample, attribute access, etc., on a map cube, not as currently standing map cube. Something that I've had in mind for a while, but I've never had sat down and found time to implement, was I think it would be really cool if, with the current MapCube implementation, ignoring spatially aligned of the same size, none of that for the moment, it would be really cool if you could do mapcube.observatory and get a list back. Just so that you can, or map.instrument and get a list back. Mapcube.instrument and get a list back. Basically, apply any valid map property or method to a map cube one at a time and get a list of results or another map cube back.
Yeah, so Jack and I also talked about that, and you'll notice we have implemented some of that, and basically what this is doing, it just gets you the first one. Because on import, it checks whether some of these things are the same. And that kind of goes into this, what are we assuming on this map cube?
But
right?
Okay, so this is my thing. I haven't got into the assumptions yet. I like the fact that MapCube doesn't make any assumptions about the homogeneity of the things it holds. I agree that this is very limiting in certain situations.
Well,
Very, very limiting in certain situations.
composite map
Also,
should do that.
no, see, composite map, you're assuming that composite map assumes that they're temporally aligned.
Currently, I don't think it assumes anything.
Well, no, right, but the implicit assumption is they're temporally aligned, right? Not the explicit assumption. The implicit assumption is that they're temporarily aligned.
Yeah.
But MapCube, maybe this shouldn't be called MapCube. Maybe the fact that MapCube is misleading for the current MapCube. I was trying to think of a new name for this new thing you were making, but actually thinking about it, maybe MapCube is the wrong name for what is currently MapCube,
Yeah.
i.e. a very loose, very non-restrictive collection of maps. It's very handy to have that and to be able to operate lists of maps together.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So perhaps we should make MapCube something else. Provide that functionality to do like MapList. MapList would be good. Provide functionality to apply all the map API to MapList and get iterables back.
Yeah.
And then try and actually make a cube object.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, I mean, basically, as you make more assumptions about the data that you have, you can provide more functionality.
Yes,
right?
That's true.
And right now, yeah, MapCube, I felt like it's so crappy that it's assuming nothing, so it really provides very little.
But what you're talking about creating a general cube object. Like,
no,
you are.
No.
I know you don't want to go down the rabbit hole, which is
This
very
is
justifiable.
Yeah, we're nowhere near solving that problem, right?
But
we've already tried solving it.
What assumptions are you making? You're making spatially aligned, same wavelength, everything here, right?
Yeah, basically think of it as like AIA. You have a bunch of AIA maps of the same wavelength. That's basically where this is being applied.
You're talking about same wavelength or different wavelength?
Same wavelength.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Yeah.
You could definitely implement this, but I think conflating it with MapCube, the current MapCube, in the way that you are, is going to confuse people.
That's fine. I mean, I'm not married to the name. I did change. It is called Map Cubed.
Sure. I mean, you need something which is. It needs to be obvious that, like, it needs to really enforce those assumptions and make sure that it actually makes sense. Because then, that functionality would be great. If you can make those assumptions, that functionality would be really, really useful, and you wouldn't have to go very far down the rabbit hole. But you can't make the current implementation of MapCube do that.
So maybe we should change the name of MapCube right now to MapList, and then, well, Stephen, essentially what we're writing is MapList, right?
No, what you're writing is not MapList. You're writing some kind of cube. Very restrictive cube.
Map cube.
Cube map.
Well, whatever. We can come up with a name later.
What you're coming up with is neither MapCube or MapList. It is Map Square. It is very. It is very. It's very restrictive.
Map
it is very
oblong.
It's
Map Pentagon.
Basically, I think that what you're currently writing needs to be something else. I think, to be honest, what you're writing should and probably could not be a list of maps, but be a NumPy array, a 3D NumPy array underneath. Potentially. I don't know how you feel about that.
But that would break the maps are inherit.
But I mean, you're already doing
ND
that
data.
with that data attribute, right? That's what you're
Yeah.
already doing. You're already making it a 3D NumPy array. So maybe you should start from that assumption and have other things as lists.
Well, yeah. I mean, the dot data is kind of a cheat because there's a dot map, there's underscore map, which has all the maps listed there, and
Yep.
that's where the data actually lives. And dot
No,
data
it
is just
actually
going
lives in
and grabbing
both.
it. Hmm?
Yeah, but dot data is constructing its own array.
Yes, and it does it every time, which is actually fairly slow. Which I'm not quite sure how to solve that.
Yeah, what you could see, that's the thing. It shouldn't probably be creating that every time. I think it should create that. Oh, that's not. Okay, so one horrific hack you could do. Would this work? Would that work? NumPy arrays slices return views to an array. Basically, what you want is you want to be able to access the same data both as a 3D NumPy array and as a list of maps.
Yes.
Now, I wonder whether you could set map.data, i.e., the data attribute of the input map, to rather than be its own array, be a slice on the cube array. Because that's really what you want.
Yeah.
You want to, on instantiation, you want to take a list of maps, create one cube, and then make everything else point at the cube.
Yeah, that's NumPy foo that I couldn't figure out. Because really, it's just pointers, right? You just want a pointer into the list. So I'm going to have to go pretty soon because I have another meeting. But
Yeah, I'm going to go see shit.
the other things I thought was kind of nice was having like the mean, minimum, and maximum, right? Before they just give you numbers, but now they actually return you a map.
Nice.
So and we're also going to do like curves get returned when you ask for pixels, for example.
Yeah, you are talking about making a cube. Something very similar to, albeit substantially less complicated than the WCS cube prototype that Maitio wrote.
Yeah.
And it needs to be. This should be something else other than MapCube. It needs to have a separate name and not be MapCube. I like this approach. I like this kind of like top-down approach to it. I think it will actually make something that's usable, but it's not MapCube.
So the next step is Jack. This is my contribution. Jack has, well, Jack and I have discussed a lot of this together, and then he's putting in his own code. So probably maybe next meeting or the meeting after, we'll do a little demo.
Yep.
And then see what people think. Because there's a few choices that we're making, which, you know, like the dot data and how we handle meta is also kind of a mess. We'll see. Okay. I think that's it for me, guys.
More Unidown for next week.
Yeah, what's the plan for Unidown? We just have to test it.
It needs, it just needs
More
eyes
testing.
on, basically.
Because I find those things very quickly, like very quickly.
That's not a good sign.
No, it might be easy stuff to fix. So it looks like some of it looks pretty easy. So, and it's even like we generated some good discussion. So I think anyone who finds a bug is gonna do the same.
Yeah. I'm worried that there are underlying issues that mean we will. I mean, it looks to me like it'll be very hard for us to meet the deadline where we currently.
Oh, we're never going to meet the deadline.
Yeah.
It's never, no. It's never happening. Okay, so I think you could. I think with the map cube thing, I think if you, on instance, if you create that object, build the 3D array, and then replace the dot data or dot underscore data, whichever one it is, attribute of the input map classes with just slices of the NumPy array, I think it will work.
Yeah.
I think that's literally all you have to do. And then you're only storing the data once, and it'll all point back to the same array.
Ooh. Okay. Since the ball is in your court, Jack, do you want to try that, or do you want to? That's fine. You can pass it to me, and I'll poke around it too.
How will submap work? At the moment, we're just nicking stuff from.
No, so right now, when you do .data, it actually generates a whole new array of data.
Yes.
So now you have the data twice.
Mm-hmm.
So what he's suggesting is on import you create the data attribute, and then you go in and take each of the maps and just replace the .data with this slice of the map cube .data, and so now you only have it once. And so when you ask for .data in the cube, it'll give you the thing, and then when you're using the maps individually, it's taking a slice of the data cube. And so it'll solve this issue.
What the only problem with that is if the user creates the maps first, then creates the map cube object, and then deletes the map cubed object, none of the maps will have data in them anymore. Because there'll suddenly be references to a non-existent array.
Well, I think no, we could just copy.
Maybe no, don't copy. That's not the point. You don't want to copy because then you're holding the data in memory twice. You don't want to hold the data in memory twice.
When you give the maps to map cubed, you could copy the maps, and so
no, don't do that because then you're holding you're holding the data in memory twice. You only want the arrays once. Because when you're dealing with cubes of image data, you run into array size memory limitations. You really only want that data in RAM once. I mean, the problem I've just described is exceedingly niche, right? Who actually ever uses the delete statement in Python? I mean, really. Yeah. It's just it's solved by documentation. You could even have an uncube method that undoes it.
Uncube.
Stop.
I've never actually used the delete method ever.
It's only January 4th.
I'm not even sure that bug actually exists because I don't know if you delete the class. And the attribute of the class is the array, and you delete the class, but there are still references to the attribute array.
Yeah.
Does the garbage collector delete the array or not?
I don't think so, because the pointer count is still...
Exactly. There's still references to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. You'd have to try that out.
Okay, guys, I really have to go now.
Yeah, this is getting ridiculous. I need to go home and have my lunch. Have my dinner.
Okay, good meeting. Talk to you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye. See you guys.
See ya.